The world of long ago was not soft or easy. Life in the Middle Ages was a tangle of duties, dangers, and strange ideas that would feel almost unrecognizable to us today. Among the oddest things was how people thought about love. It was not painted in gentle shades, not pictured as trust or kindness, but as something closer to a sickness, a burning fever, a kind of hunger that gnawed at the body. This story begins in a quiet village, tucked between rolling fields and the shadow of a gray stone castle. The year was long before clocks ticked in people's homes, and before books sat on every table. The air often smelled of wood smoke, damp soil, and the musk of animals. Life was hard, but people found ways to laugh and sing. In that village lived Thomas, a young scribe. He had pale hands from working with parchment all day, and eyes that grew red from squinting at tiny letters. His life was steady, almost dull, yet inside him there was always a restless energy. He wanted more than ink and routine. And then came Eleanor. She was the daughter of a traveling merchant, and she arrived with bright fabrics, brass trinkets, and stories of towns far away. Her hair was the color of dark honey, and her voice carried warmth even when she spoke only of simple things. To Thomas, she was like a candle lit in a dim room. At first, he thought what stirred inside him was joy. He noticed her at the market. He caught himself writing her name in the margins of his parchment, letters curling as though they were vines. But soon the joy changed into something harsher, sharper. In the Middle Ages, people did not speak of love as comfort. They spoke of it as passio, passion, suffering, even torment. Priests warned against it. Physicians said it spoiled the balance of the body's humors. Old songs told of knights who went mad for their ladies, carving her name into their own flesh. Love in their eyes was not tender. It was a fever, a dangerous longing. And Thomas began to understand why. Started small. His stomach twisted whenever he saw Eleanor smile at another man in the square. His nights grew restless, and he woke with sweat on his brow. He stopped eating bread at supper, and even honey cakes lost their sweetness. Neighbors whispered, "The scribe has caught the sickness," they said. "He has the wasting fire," for that was what they called it. When a man pined too much, when he lost his appetite, when his face turned pale, people said he was eaten alive by love. Thomas tried to cure himself. He prayed longer in church. He plunged his hands in cold water to steady his thoughts. He worked until his fingers cramped. Nothing helped. Every time Eleanor's voice carried over the cobblestones, his heart leapt painfully, as though it wished to tear free of his chest. One evening, he confessed to Father Anselm, the old priest. The church smelled of beeswax and damp stone. Candles flickered against the walls. "Father," Thomas whispered, "I am not well. I think of her always. When she laughs, I feel light as air. When she is gone, I feel hollow. What is wrong with me?" The priest's eyes narrowed. "What you feel is not holy," he said. "It is disease. Do you not know? Love rots the body, clouds the mind. It is temptation, and it will eat you alive if you let it." The words struck Thomas like a bell toll. A disease. That was how his neighbors saw it. That was how his world saw it. Yet, in the silence of his own heart, he felt a stubborn spark. Could a disease make the world brighter? Could sickness lift a man's spirit, even as it burned him? Eleanor herself was not cruel, nor distant. She was kind to Thomas. She listened to him describe old tales he copied into parchment. She smiled when he told her of the letters that shaped the word amor, the Latin word for love. Sometimes her hand brushed his as they traded coins or bread, and the touch lingered longer than it should. But Eleanor was also practical. Her family moved often, and she knew the dangers of promises. "You are sweet," she said once, her eyes soft but cautious. "But I am no lady in a ballad. I must go where trade takes us." The more she spoke with honesty, the deeper Thomas's hunger grew. He felt torn between two voices, the priest's warning that love was a disease, and his own heart insisting that it was something more. Each day became harder. His friends pulled away, muttering that his face was thin, his step uneven. "He is cursed by passion," they said. Thomas began to fear they were right. Perhaps he was ill. Perhaps love was nothing but poison. One spring afternoon, Eleanor asked Thomas to walk with her beyond the fields. The air smelled of damp earth and wild garlic. Birds called from the hedges, and the sky stretched wide and pale. They came to a small garden behind the old monastery wall. Few villagers went there, for it was said to be filled with plants used by healers, both remedies and poisons. The garden was quiet, a secret place. Eleanor knelt beside a patch of bitter herbs. She plucked a leaf and held it out. "Taste this," she said. Thomas frowned. "Is it safe?" She smiled. "Safe enough." He bit into the leaf. At once, his mouth filled with sharp bitterness. He coughed, grimacing. Eleanor laughed, the sound bright and unguarded. "Awful, isn't it?" she said. "Yet in small measure it heals fevers. The monks use it for the sick." Thomas blinked, tasting the sharpness linger on his tongue. And in that moment he understood. Love was like that leaf. Bitter, yes. It burned, yes. But it could also heal if held carefully. Eleanor's gaze softened as she watched him. "They say love is a sickness," she murmured. "But I wonder if it is simply strong medicine. Too much may kill, but just enough may save." The words rang in his mind like music. Perhaps their world was wrong. Perhaps love was not only torment, not only decay. It could be painful, but it could also be the force that pulled life into sharper color. From that day, Thomas carried the garden's lesson inside him. He no longer denied the burning in his chest, nor did he let it rule him. When his heart raced at Eleanor's nearness, he breathed slowly, reminding himself that passion was not death. It was life in its fiercest form. The villagers still whispered, but he no longer feared their words. The priest still warned, but Thomas listened with quiet patience. He had tasted the bitterness of love, and he had learned it could also heal. Eleanor continued to move from town to town, yet whenever she returned, Thomas was there with calm eyes and steady hands. Their bond was not sealed in vows or written in ink, but it was real, rooted in shared moments. A story read aloud. A quiet walk by the river. A look that lingered. It was not the feverish madness sung of in old ballads. It was not the withering disease that physicians feared. It was something else, something balanced, bitter and sweet together, like the herb in the monastery garden. Years later, Thomas would still be a scribe, his fingers stained with ink. Eleanor would come and go with her family's trade. They never married, never built a house side by side. But their paths crossed enough that the fire between them never went out. When people asked Thomas if he still suffered from his sickness, he would smile gently. "No," he said, "I have learned it is not a sickness. It is a strength. Love can wound, yes, but it can also make a man see the world more clearly." And in the quiet of his heart, he carried Eleanor's words, that love, like medicine, could heal or harm, depending on how one held it. So he chose to hold it carefully, to let it shape his life without destroying it. And that was enough. The world around him still called love a fever, a curse, a dangerous fire. But Thomas had found another truth. In the strange, harsh days of the Middle Ages, he had discovered that love was not only torment. It was the bitter sweetness that reminded him he was alive. And though the songs and sermons of his time would never admit it, he knew, deep down, that love, even in its pain, was worth bearing.